Hey, Glenn, thank you for that. Turns out the speaker contacted me too and was having the same problem. Seems like what happened was the original speaker who canceled on me midweek. I just took his link and sent it to the new person that I lined up, but then he actually, when he canceled, he went into the calendar and canceled the meeting, and so the link became invalid.
Got it.
How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. By the way, this says it's recording when I joined in, so I don't know if it is or it isn't, but
I could turn it off.
Normally you have a time when you start that, so just for what it's worth,
I know.
I'm pretty sure I didn't click anything to start it, so I don't know if it's a byproduct of the new link or whatever. But
no, I've been setting it to auto record recently because I've been bad at starting it at the right time. So usually what I do is I go take the video and I lop off the first part of it and edit it down to the point. Sometimes.
Did you get my email last Friday by chance?
Let me look. I don't recall getting it. I was camping last Friday, so but I should have got it. Let's see.
Non-Intel.
Yeah, I do not. The last thing I have from you is July 9th.
Interesting.
Let me check my spam, maybe. Are you a spammer?
I hope not.
We've all been there at one point in the spam box. So I don't have anything in my spam box either from you. It's from your Yahoo address?
Oh, yeah, it should be.
Okay.
Now I'm looking in my sent messages and there's that problem too. Huh.
You sent it to Daniel at GoodSamaritanCapital.com?
Well, you know, I say I did, and yet I can't find evidence of it actually having been sent, nor you having received it. So I can continue to believe I did it, but
it's okay, Glenn. We all black out sometimes on Fridays.
Yeah, that's usually because I have a martini in my hand, though, and that's not till after lunch.
Right. That was what I was alluding to. Yes.
Yep.
The martini or the bag of whatever.
You live in a place where you can do that. Actually, you know what? I can now too. That's right.
I am actually an active member in Alcoholics Anonymous, so I attend fairly regularly.
Congratulations, good for you. All right. Well,
I'll probably make sure the beginning is cut off now.
Fair enough. Well, I'm going to try again. I'll send you the note now. Hopefully, I can get it to go through.
Yeah. Hello, Allan.
Hi, Daniel. Hi, Glenn. Hi, Trent.
Hello.
Here's our speaker. We'll need to wait for a few more people to join here. We've got, I see our speakers joining, connecting to the audio. Let's see. Hello, AJ. We had a little bit, and actually you know about it, we had a Zoom link snafu. The previous person who midweek said that he wasn't able to make it, he had set up I had set up the Zoom meeting for him, and then I just took his link and sent it on to you. But then after I did that, apparently he went and canceled the meeting, which invalidated the link. And so I've now sent it out to everybody at Intel as well. So I think people are going to be a little slow trickling in.
No worries.
We've got 162 people registered today.
All right.
And we usually get about half that number for whatever reason. People like to register and not show up.
Yeah, that happens. Is it well, fun? How's your day going?
It's good. Meeting. It's Intel.
Yeah.
I think I told you, and I'll tell people here, this weekend I'm celebrating my 18th wedding anniversary So I'm looking forward to that. I feel old. The gray hairs are starting to accumulate.
Congratulations.
Sounds like you're having a fun weekend too, though, AJ.
Yeah, we're heading out on the boat on the Willamette, and then going to the Timbers Sounders game. So
There you go.
Yeah,
That should be fun.
it's always a good rivalry. They it's just.
Do you have seats up there by the
usually,
Timber Army?
What's that? No, we're in the Mac Club.
Okay.
But, I mean, it's still just electric, just with the influx of people. I mean, Seattle's so close, so.
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to ask people about this since I have the wisdom of the crowd sitting here with me. This was an odd thing that happened to me yesterday. I've got a box that you can't see because anyway, I was sent a $9 ring from Etsy. The order has my name on it, my address on it, but the email address is not my email address. It's a fake account that's been created. And I don't have any charges on my credit card or anything in my Etsy account. Somebody just shipped me a $9 it's a cute little ring, honestly. I mean, my daughter said she wanted to wear it, but I have no idea why somebody would send me a $9 ring under a false account. And then I can find no charges on my credit card.
If you look, Daniel, I'll maybe post a link in the chat. There is a very common practice now of doing this in order to be able to generate reviews onto the site on your behalf.
Yeah, I looked and I couldn't find any reviews, but maybe they're still coming.
I have also heard of a scam going on where people will have stuff delivered to a different address and use a different credit card so that it can't be tracked. And then they'll just wait for the shipment to deliver and come pick it up on your doorstep. So I had some friends that they have a Ring doorbell and they had 10 or 12 iPads delivered to their front door, and they just put them in the garage because they didn't know what they were. But then on their Ring, they could see some truck kind of moping about trying to come pick up the packages.
Yeah, those are interesting scams. I don't know why if somebody was going to do that here, why would they send me a $9 item though?
Yeah, so, that's, well, maybe verifying the address works.
But yeah, I thought that it could be a prelude to some sort of identity theft.
Yeah,
I've had this happen, Daniel. I've gotten trinkets with a small dollar figure that are shipped from overseas with a fairly nondescript label to my address. I've gotten those in probably once or twice in the last 2 or 3 years, but as I did the same thing you did, I went and looked at it. A lot of it was described to me as being someone either trying to generate reviews by getting you to go use it and then write on their behalf, or they're now just figuring out enough of your identity to be able to write as if it's you onto their own page themselves.
Well, in any case, I'll keep an eye on it. It's a cute little $9 ring.
Sorry, Daniel, I thought it would just look cute on you, so sorry about that.
What's that? Look cute on me?
I said, sorry about that. I thought it would look cute on you.
Oh, yes.
Just
yeah.
kidding.
Well, thank you very much, Brooke or Bo. All right. It's great to see people are joining. Sorry about the last minute URL change. The speaker who was originally going to be here canceled midweek, and AJ Shepard has graciously bumped up the time that he is going to be speaking to us to this week to fill in that gap. And what had happened is the previous speaker actually canceled the meeting and invalidated the meeting link, even though I had already posted it on meetup.intel.com and sent it over to Ajay. So that's why there was a last minute switch there. I'm glad you all made it over here. And of course, I always love, thank you to the people that are willing to share their video. I always love the personal connection of that. If you're willing to share your video, that'd be great. If not, that's fine too. We're at lunch hour. At this point, I am going to, and I'm sorry, AJ, I don't have here. I've got your bio now. All right, I'm going to introduce AJ. He's actually over here in the Portland area. So for those of you that are in the Portland metro area, you have the opportunity to get to know him. But AJ is the co-owner of Uptown Properties in Portland, and he's a licensed contractor in Oregon. He's been in business since 2010 and prides himself on leadership in the local real estate market and property management community. Finding his passion in real estate and construction management, he's created an avenue for the company to help provide all services necessary to their clients. Knowing the trade and ability to manage many allows for a streamlined maintenance of the investor's property at a reduced cost. AJ is also the co-host of the West Side Investors Network podcast. AJ, I'm going to have to give you some grief for that, because in 2020, I had a real estate network on the West Side over in Hillsborough called the Willamette Investors Network. So we have the same name, and my podcast, which you can look up, is the Win Multifamily Show, which ran in 2020. But so in short, I like the name. And I just lost your bio again. Let me pull it up. So if you're interested in, is that an in-person event, AJ?
The podcast, we have guests on, and it runs on Apple and iTunes and all the different podcast hosts.
Gotcha.
We last year did meetups, or tried to, and then it stopped with the pandemic, and we kind of haven't really gotten back to the local real estate meetup.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, where did you meet?
We were at the Lucky Lab over in Multnomah Village. It's like down the street from our office.
Yep, that's nice. We were meeting over in the Beaverton Library. All right. So anyway, I would like to introduce Ajay and welcome him to the group here. He's going to talk to us. Could you give a brief introduction to your business, just so we know what business you're in? And then you're going to talk to us about using virtual assistants in our businesses.
Yeah. So should I just like share my screen and get into it, or I'll kind of go over? I've got a little bio on myself and explain what we do. Sure.
Do you want to just speak, or do you want to do this more informal interview style?
I mean, I've got like a presentation. So Allan on here is my manager of offsite professionals, and she's a virtual assistant. Rika, Jerica, there is my personal assistant now. And so I have a whole presentation on, how we utilize them, what works. It's mainly geared towards, I speak a lot for property management. I'm a regional vice president for NARPM, which is the National Association of Residential Property Managers. I know it's a mouthful. And so I speak in front of a bunch of property managers a lot, and they're business owners, but these sort of concepts, it goes in managing teams. And it just kind of shows how we manage teams and how we interact with employees. So.
All right, take it away. If people here have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I'll judiciously interrupt you and read them off, or we can just wait till the end.
All right, sounds good. So yeah, today I'm going to be talking about how to effectively work with a personal assistant. We'll kind of go over introduction, why it's nice to have a personal assistant, talk about delegation, setting goals and expectations, learning styles, and just trying how to stay organized and do it. So I think you already explained kind of who I am. So we've recently got into syndication in the last couple of years, and we are doing projects in Portland. And my brother and I started out buying houses in 2007, 2008 in the Portland area. We've kind of bought property all through that time period. Some other businesses that I'm a part of that you may know or may not: Uptown Properties, Uptown Syndication. I'm part owner in Uptown Beer Co., founder in it. We just opened up a new location for Binary Brewing in Beaverton. It's off Broadway and Hall, 12345 Broadway. We talked about West Side Investors Network. Allan is in charge of offsite professionals, and then we have a cost segregation company that helps perform those services. So Allan, I'm going to let you talk about yourself a little bit and a little bit of your background.
Sure. Thanks, AJ. Hi, everybody. I'm Allan, and I was AJ's executive assistant for 3 years, and I've helped him with administrative duties. I've also managed projects and spearheaded new projects as well for the company. I was also involved in creating and streamlining company processes. Currently, I work full-time as a manager for AJ's other company, Offsite Professionals.
And Rika is currently my new assistant. Allan's moved on to manage that other company. Rika, you
Hello,
there?
everybody. Yeah. Hello, everybody. Thanks, AJ. My name is Rika. I am AJ's new executive assistant. I started working with him June this year. And over the recent months, since he travels frequently, AJ entrusted me to handle the majority of his travel plans, emails, business tasks, as well as other personal matters. As he mentioned earlier, AJ owns multiple businesses, so I take on a variety of responsibilities throughout his PM departments, ensuring that all this correspondence is currently and arranged effectively.
Thanks, Rika. So, I'm kind of going to speed through this today. I know that a lot of you are with Intel and mostly real estate investors, but I hope that this kind of gives you an insight to how some smaller businesses run and then how kind of our company operates. We utilize assistants like Allan and Rika are out of the Philippines. It's reduced, economics, and then it provides us ability to have additional resources and ability to grow. So it's pretty awesome. So why you need an assistant? Increased productivity. It allows me to have more free time. Some of my brother and I's core values is freedom. I play a lot of golf. I like to get on the boat and all this other stuff. And having the resources there and available and trained up to do things for us and on our behalf allows us to really maximize our free time. And that's pretty much the slide of like why gain your freedom is to get out there and be able to do more and focus on the things that you love. So what can they do? What can personal assistants do for us? This list is really endless. But Allan and Rika work on the business, work on special projects, maybe something that's not in line with the day-to-day tasks or the weekly running of the business. And that's kind of nice to have that additional resource into, as well as like regular employees that are doing the work day to day. It's another set of eyes, stuff to review things. I know that a lot of people work in teams and, it's just an additional set of people. And, Rika can attend things on my behalf, take notes, and then report back to me, saves my time. And then if I need something done while I'm out doing something, it's super nice to have someone that's, dedicated to a desk if I need something signed or set up or kind of whatever, and it allows me to be very mobile. So the first question people always ask is like, well, what do you have them do? Well, it differs from person to person. So I really like this matrix. And if you read some of the self-help books, it's kind of like organizing, the tasks and what you want to do is get the stuff that you're good at and the stuff that you like and doing more of that, and then getting the not so good and what you don't like off of your plate. And so if someone is ever first starting with an assistant, I say, write down all the things that you do, maybe take a week and like every time you do a different task, like write that down, write what it is, and then kind of try to put it into this matrix. And then generally what I say is start with the stuff that you are not good at and don't like. So Allan, I'm going to have you chat about kind of delegating and some of this stuff.
Sure. So first off, it's email correspondence. I think this particular task can be delegated over to an assistant. So Rika does this for AJ. Special projects that you can also delegate are like, let's say you are starting a new company, you can have a personal assistant or a virtual assistant take on creating your website and starting it from scratch. Another would be like, let's say starting a podcast. That's another special project that you can delegate to an assistant, like being in charge of coordination with podcast guests and just mainly, being in charge of posting them on various podcast platforms, plus editing the audio of the podcast. Third would be accounts payable, and fourth, bookkeeping. So I'll just combine these two. Let's say billing. You are probably knowledgeable and you know how to do bookkeeping and accounting yourself, but if you don't have like the time in the world to do all of these, you can delegate it over to an assistant. Research, an example would be like creating presentation. This is something that can be done by an assistant too. travel and hotel arrangements. AJ travels a lot, so he attends various conferences, conventions, and so on. So the assistant can look for, better flight options and arrange travels for AJ. Gatekeeping, so some of the phone calls can be screened by the assistant, and then the assistant can just report back to the boss and say like, hey, these are the phone calls that you need to get back to. And lastly, develop processes and format documents. Yeah, I think that's it.
Cool. Yeah, and there's endless amounts of items that you can do to free up your time, and I think the ultimate goal is to really gain that freedom, and also, I mean, keep getting work done at the same time. So both my brother and I utilize a personal assistant, and it's been very, very beneficial. It's taken us years to really like hone in those skills, but once you get good at delegating, you often like really have the want to do that and just kind of tackle new things. It also makes like taking on new projects a lot easier. It's because like you've got a team behind you, you've got resources, and you're like, this is great. So what I want to talk about next is like the art of delegating. We really kind of like try to go by the SMART acronym: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. And that's really just getting clear on what you want, clear on how to measure it, make sure that it's possible, realistic, and then have some sort of time associated with it. A lot of times, employees or team members, they may not have the vision that everyone else does, and communicating that vision down can be difficult. So taking some time in the beginning to really develop that plan and develop what needs to be done. A little time up front can go a long way back in the end. So how we do this, we first, get everyone on the same page, make sure that there's an example or kind of like an idea of what needs to be done. Keep people accountable, and I'll go into this a little bit later with like how we do coaching, and then be clear on what success looks like. And then also just like give feedback along the process. Not everyone gets it right the first time. Like you got to be patient. And, my dad always used to tell me, he's like 80% of something's better than 100% of nothing. And lastly, like what I really like here at the end is celebrate the wins. Like once you get to the point that it's done and it's great, like really celebrate it. Like, some accolades go a long way. And that's kind of probably more for me than some other people. So next, like one of the things when you're delegating, it's really good to understand like how people learn. Like everybody learns differently. And so these are the top 4 learning styles. I'm not saying that they're every learning style, but like the top 4. So visual, you're hearing me now. Visual, you're looking at me now. Auditory, you're hearing it. Verbal, you're the one speaking it back, and then kinesthetic, you're actually like doing it. One of the things that we do in our company that works really well is like this Zoom platform here is you can share your screen and perform a task and then talk through it. So typically what we will do is we'll have the task, I'll do it, I'll talk through what I'm doing, and I'll show it on the screen so it hits all 3 of them, and then I'll pass that task down to the personal assistant, and I'll say, all right, I want you to do this a couple times, and then after you have, then record it back and send it back to me and make sure it's correct. So what that does is it hits all 4 different styles, and it helps. And then at the end of it, you actually have like almost a written process of like what needs to be done. So that's a pretty effective tool for how we delegate. So the next thing is like, okay, well, what do we delegate? I talked about having that plan, like that kind of list of like what to do. So then next is utilize your new assistant or that person to actually create the processes. And I kind of talked about how I did that. And then when they do it in their process, it takes some time to like review it, refine it, make sure it's right. We use shared cloud folders, which I'm sure a lot of you guys are super familiar with. And then We have regular like coaching calls with them. So we want to help them develop their new skills. And then again, it's those regular coaching calls that have follow-up with accountability. One of the other things that I am pretty not good at, but what I would say is what we do that is pretty helpful is that I have different types of communication. I mean, a lot of people probably have like email correspondence, text, calls, and then you may have like a Slack or some other form of communication. So I always, when I have an assistant, we talk about like those different forms and what they mean. Me personally, what I use is email. You know, I want an answer 24 to 48 hours, like that's fine. Text is like an elevated, like, hey, this needs to be taken care of in like the next 4 hours. And then if it's a call, like that needs to be hopped on like really soon. So like we know that we have these modes of communication and vice versa, like they have that ability with me. Like if it's something that's not super important, like they can email it and then text, but like setting those expectations on how people need to respond to them just makes a clear pathway for how you can work together a lot better. And so like a lot of people may not think about that, they just like do it, but like really being active about explaining why and how it works can be really helpful. So yeah, so our next thing is coaching, and I actually have another kind of like sheet here. And let me. So this is kind of like our coaching plan. And so Allan and I, we kind of go through, it sets like the dates. We have like books that she's reading. You know, she's got her goals for 2022. And then like every so often typically it's about once a month, we review these action plans. And so right now she's got an action plan for accounting coach, going through chapters, however many to learn more about accounting. So we're going to kind of do just like a little demo on how this coaching program would go. As a coach, you really want to be patient, you want to be asking questions. One of the things that I've learned is that if the person that is supposed to do the task, if they generate the idea, they're 10 times more likely to perform it and execute on it. If you're sitting there telling them like, you need to do this, or this is how you do it, they take not necessarily offense to that, but they may not see it the same way. So Allan, on your second action plan here, you've got hire 10 virtual assistants. Like, how are you going to get that done?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess my first step would be to identify these 10 new VA roles. Like there are different types of virtual assistants, like executive assistants, personal assistant, customer service virtual assistant, leasing, and so on. So I think that's going to be my first step, to identify these 10 VA roles.
Okay, and then how are you going to go about that?
I will be starting the marketing process. I would post 3 marketing ads specific to the VA roles daily through various platforms like LinkedIn, Facebook, and other else.
Okay, so what sort of actions are you going to take over the next week to get there?
I would say I will be facilitating interviews daily, at least five interviews a day. And then from there, I will be collating the data into our CRM. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. Can you update this action plan?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I will, hang on one sec. Let me just type it in real quick.
So the other thing to take a look at too is, I'm sure you're familiar with lag measures and lead measures. And as I'm asking those questions, what I'm trying to do is have something in there that she has control over. You know, the actions that she can take in effect. Like there's this concept of when you play poker or anything else, like you can have actions that you can do and it might lead to an adverse outcome, or it might lead, or you can do less actions and it might lead to a beneficial outcome. But what we want to focus on is like, what are the actions that she has control over and that will most likely come to a beneficial outcome of the goal. So yeah, so that's kind of like how we go through it. I'm trying to ask questions of like how, why, you know, and leave them open-ended and have them come up with the idea. So
AJ, sorry, do you want to entertain questions or do you want to answer these questions at the end part of the presentation?
oh boy, is there, I didn't even see that there was questions yet.
Yeah.
We're at like 12, 25.
I'll read the question for you.
Okay.
The time difference of virtual assistants. I mean, is that okay?
Yeah, so all of the employees that are in the Philippines that work for us are required to work our hours. And Allan, do you want to comment on that? Like, you're the one that's doing most of it and working with people.
Yeah, actually, since I'm the one in charge in hiring virtual assistants for different business owners, typically during the interview process, I would set proper expectations to the applicants that this is going to be for a US-based company. Therefore, they are required to work US business hours. So there's already that expectation just during the interview process. Like, we're already giving them a heads up that, hey, it's going to be, you know, graveyard shift for you. So.
And a lot of the culture over there, it's typically warmer, and the culture is what's the acronym for the financial institutions that have call centers over there, Allan?
Sorry, can you ask the question again?
What's the acronym for the financial institutions that have call centers? I forget. Like
BPO.
BPO, yeah.
BPO, business processing outsource.
Yeah, so
there are a lot of BPO companies here in the Philippines, and majority of US businesses have been outsourcing their business here in the Philippines, like the ones, you know, doing customer service jobs. So like working graveyard shifts are actually not a new thing already here in the Philippines. So like major businesses in the US like Walmart, Sears, even telco accounts as well are outsourcing here in the Philippines. So I think it's not that challenging for all of our experienced virtual assistants to, you know, follow the US time zone. So.
And it also kind of creates a funnel, like those that are good and want to move up and like do more, they end up kind of following this path of going up through managers in the BPO, and then they kind of go out on their own. So it's yeah.
So
Daniel,
do you recommend going through a VPO or just hiring direct?
I mean, you can do either. The BPOs are like physical call centers, like for like Chase,
right,
or like JP Morgan, or like something like that, where they bring them in, they have, you know, computer screens with all the, like, typically the companies are opening up an operation over there. And so what that does is it improves their English. Like the Philippines has their English is, I think, a second language. Like they're very proficient in English. And so it just, the people that excel in that industry get bored and like look for new challenges. And this is like coming to work for smaller businesses in the US is kind of like the higher cream of the crop per se. Like it provides,
I gotcha.
It provides a pathway for progress for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I was a little confused about what they were. I know that there are organizations that are virtual assistant organizations that you kind of hire out, and they manage, you know, they're like temp firms almost, right?
Yeah.
They bring in people that work for you, and they do all the assignments. I was going to ask, do you recommend going with an organization like that or just hiring direct?
I mean, I prefer having the control over the employee as to what they do. Like there are other companies out there that'll like take your processes and then do them. And my experience with those is the communication is just too difficult. Like I enjoy having the resource and working with an actual person too, as opposed to kind of like when they set it up, it's more like a service. But that's my personal preference. Like, and there's a lot out there. And so offsite professionals, that this company that Allan is managing does provide, you know, virtual assistants for other companies, but we just do it only full time. Is there any other questions in the chat, or should I keep going?
Yeah, I think there's another question. How is the burnout rate for working those hours based on the US? I imagine that can be challenging to maintain.
Allan, I'm going to let you answer that one, too.
Well, I would say the rates that we offer at offsite professionals vary depending on your needs. We have like specialized virtual assistants. Like, for example, you are in need of
Allan, I think they're asking about like attrition and like how, when, you know, if people are working those hours for a sustained amount of time.
Oh, attrition.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I would say, based on how I see it in managing offsite professionals, the attrition rate is not that high, mainly because during the interview process or the recruiting process, I'm already filtering out the ones that are experienced and the ones that are like no experience at all. Because from there, you know, you can set you can already see the performance that the virtual assistant will be able to do, especially if they are experienced working night shifts. It's not new to them to, you know, transition working at a graveyard shift because they've been doing it for quite some time.
Cool. All right, I'm going to keep going on the presentation and we're going to save the questions for the end. Does that work? All right, so the next thing is like how to stay organized with an assistant. So we use Trello. There's many different services out there. You can use Excel. We use like the coaching program and then that accountability within the coaching program. I'm a big fan of calendars and like time blocking for things that we need to do. And then my last thing is like, again, be patient and understanding. I mean, just kind of right there, Allan maybe misunderstood the question a little bit and then just like redirecting her. Like she definitely has the information. English is a second language with the personal assistants that I use. So just being cognizant, understanding, and patient, I think is very good. So I do have an example of Trello. Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to ask really quickly what CRM you use also.
So we use a CRM specific to property management. It's called Lead Simple. Jordan Eula developed that, and they've incorporated some automated processes. So our whole property management company, like it lists all the tasks that need to be done. Allan and Rika are very familiar with it. I'm happy to give a demo if anybody wants one later. I don't have it planned in this particular one, but you can, essentially it's a dynamic way to keep your processes. Like, I don't know if anyone's ever run a business or, you know, manages a team and manages processes, but with this day and age, like things change so fast that like a checklist could be out of date, and especially for property management in Oregon, where they're changing the laws, can be out of date very quickly. So having dynamic processes where we can go in and add in things makes for a really good way to keep track of everything. And then it doubles as a CRM for us for outgoing sales calls too, and outgoing sales. So kind of like when I say keep track of what things need to be done, you know, I text, I email, I call Rika and I'm like, hey, we should do this. And then I make sure that she keeps track of all of the things that need to be done so I don't have to. And then also what it does is it gives us a way to keep the processes and everything like in place. So just, you know, you can kind of see through what we do is I've got projects, there's daily tasks, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly, and then other stuff that's kind of going on. But the key thing that I have here is that this is her board. I'm not in here messing around or doing stuff. Like she has complete control over it. So Rika, do you want to just kind of give a little brief overview how it was coming? And Allan worked on this board previously, so there's been iterations. And Rika came in and yeah, you just want to touch on this?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, AJ. So, as you can see, the Trello board was quite helpful to me because when I first started working with AJ, this is where I discovered all the duties handled by his previous EAs. It is thankfully quite thorough, as you can see. Prior EAs such as Allan and AJ plan to include some links, documents in it. So when you first glance at the board, you can quickly figure out what's going on, right? So naturally it gave our team a designated location for new duties, ideas, because I also make sure to update it as well so that when AJ can see what is happening if he tries to check on a certain assignment.
And then Rika and I can go over this too in our meetings, and if she needs help on something, it's written down, and she just keeps control of it, which is nice. So let me get back to presentation. So next, I guess I'm going to have Allan talk about the do's and the don'ts, or mostly the don'ts.
Thank you, AJ. So the don'ts, the first one is underutilizing your assistant, and definitely we do not want to underutilize our assistant, mainly because this may result to demotivation, and your assistant would feel like, they're not adding value to the company. They would feel there is no room for growth, and one thing I would say is you can ask them about their previous experience or what they're good at, and so that there would be like enough projects and tasks for them to do during downtime. The second one is overworking your assistant. So like what I mentioned a while ago, underutilizing, don't do that, and don't overwork your assistant as well. We want to ensure that your assistant is not overwhelmed with work. So check in with your assistant and discuss any workload issues. We do not want to lose a valuable team member because of overloading them with so many tasks. So that's it.
And when onboarding people, like, I mean, I'm sure a lot of you have probably had new employees or new team members. As you start slow and just check in frequently. Like typically that coaching plan that I'll do, if it's a new person, I'll do it once a day or once every other day. Just set small timelines and checking in frequently, and then kind of graduate to once a week and then once every 2 weeks. And then ultimately I get to like once a month. And that once a month is probably after 3 to 6 months, just depending on the person. Just onboarding takes a long time, but what I would say is like that Trello board that has a ton of information, like as things have progressed and I've learned to use that personal assistance, I've developed that Trello board that has the resources that I can spend less time training because there's already resources there developed and done. So like those, we call them Loom videos, but it's literally Zoom recording the screen, and like the task is there and they can video and watch it, and it's unique to what I want done. So the last one of the other things is like how to give valuable feedback. So there's a book that I read, which probably is super famous, is How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it's one of the chapters that they talk about there is the compliment sandwich. If you ever have to give feedback, the best way to do it is to compliment first and then address the problem and then compliment afterwards. The other thing that we're looking at here is be specific to the problem and focused on the problem, not the person. Make sure that like the person knows it's not them, like it's this problem. Try to give it as soon as possible. So if you see something wrong, just like try to address it, and then show your appreciation. So like, thank you for trying this. Thank you for getting it done. I know it didn't work out this time, but like keep it up. Like it's gonna work, and you're gonna get it. It's not a problem. And listen for feedback from them. Allan and Rika have helped us, increase our business and grow. And they've been huge supports. And everyone's a person too. So really listen to them. So the last quote that I have is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I have some resources here at the end, but I think now I can probably take some questions. Obviously, podcasts, Westside Investors Network, some other podcasts that I listen to, Coaching for Leaders, Microfamous, and then some other books. I like a lot of these. Multipliers was one of the ones that I read recently that I really liked. And then I've got other books. I've interviewed Joey Coleman from Never Lose a Customer Again on our podcast, and his book goes through the customer onboarding and kind of retention thing. It's pretty awesome for small businesses. So if you want a copy of the presentation, I think this link works.
It does.
I can also make it available on our previous
Sure.
speakers Hall of Fame page, which is
Cool.
it's internal to Intel.
Good.
Well,
happy
unless
to
you
share
want to
that.
have people go here and get the metrics.
Yeah, either way, I've got some other QR codes here for Uptown Syndication, Westside Investors Network, kind of whatever. And yeah, if you want to contact me, I'm aj@uptownpm.com is my email. Rika will read it first and then pass it on to me. So yeah, I'll answer, 28 questions or 28 chats. Happy to answer questions. And I'm just going to leave this right there.
I'm also curious, how many people here are already using virtual assistants or maybe want to use virtual assistants? Throw your name in the chat if that's something you're interested in. And I'll take the first question unless somebody else speaks up.
Do I need to look at the chat for questions? I haven't been looking at the chat, obviously.
I can read them to you or
Yeah,
Allan,
Daniel, if you would, that'd be great. If you keep track
All
of
right.
it, I will answer.
All right. So Ashish is asking, can you hire EAs that are familiar with filing US forms? For example, a 501c3 and other tax related matters.
I would say if you are able to do it yourself, you can teach someone to do it. So our assistant, so like Rika is a personal assistant to mine, but we utilize virtual assistants in our businesses. They write leases for us. Obviously, I approve them, but like we set up processes so that they're able to do a lot of stuff. We have a full-time accountant that does all of our books for property management, all the reconciliations for client trust accounts. Allan has a credit card for me, and so does Rika. So they have a purchasing power. I think Rika just bought a microwave for me the other day, which is great. I didn't have to do it.
But definitely, AJ just wanted to mention that there is, of course, a certain level of trust before have your virtual assistant, access to your credit cards or whatnot. So I've been working with AJ for almost 4 years now. So AJ and I have spearheaded a lot of projects together.
All right, I'm going to get to Ashish's second question here, but I'm going to preface it a little bit. His question is it possible to hire someone on a short-term basis, and what are the hourly rates? And I think I want to share my experience really quickly. I use virtual assistants quite a bit in my real estate business because there are lots of tasks to do and not enough time in the day to do them all. And I honestly, my experience has been hit and miss. Although I actually do hire in the Philippines also because I've had a lot of great people. I seem to get better virtual assistants there, to be honest. So when I was doing a podcast, I ended up with 4 virtual assistants, one person who did graphics, one person who wrote the script of the podcast out, one person that coordinated social media, and another person that did video and audio editing. And we created kind of a pipeline process where we upload the raw video to Google Drive, the editors and the script writers would get to work, and basically at the end, we'd have a production ready podcast. And one of the frustrating things that I ran into was, and this for some reason was particularly true with the graphics people, they would just disappear on me. They'd ghost me. I'd go and check back and I wouldn't hear back from them for 2-3 weeks. And so what I did in order to kind of get around this problem, and I'm curious on your take about this, is I set up each of those tasks as a channel in Slack. And whenever I had a new task, I would put the task into Slack, and then I would hire 3 graphics people and pay them hourly. And I just say, whoever gets the job first gets the hours. And so that way I always had, you know, somebody who was going to pick that up. And if one person ghosted me, I would just go hire, you know, another 3rd person to kind of fill that in. And I think that underscores maybe I wasn't paying them enough. Maybe I didn't have the trust and confidence factor. I'm kind of curious on your take about what we could do to improve our relationships there. And then Ashish, do you hire on a short-term basis, and what do you pay them?
I have run into these same issues with you, with what you're talking about. Is like, so honestly, like I would have Allan or Rika manage that process of those other people. So like for like those one-off projects, we typically go to Fiverr or like 99 Designs or something like that. And so I'll like, Allan's done, I don't know, 3 or 4 websites for us. Like she did the West Side Investors Network website, but like puts up a request up on Fiverr and then picks the, you know, whatever person she wants to work with and then does that. I literally just go through the website and record what I want changed and then have her manage and do that. I very much like the availability and the resource of full-time. And so that's kind of where we've headed towards. I don't like the idea of, you know, waiting a couple hours to get a hold of them. There was another service that we used a while back where it was kind of like a team service, and they actually worked their own hours, but they would then just like communicate with us like 1 hour a day. And I found that was just too taxing to try and get projects done. Like if there's a tiny little thing that needs to get done, speed is a very important thing. And when someone's working our hours, our times, and is available during that time, like speed happens very easily. So with regards, your process sounds awesome. Like, you know, having 3 or 4 available resources, and then, you know, it's essentially posting up a request of who can get it done first, and, you know, and then it gets done. We have, for our podcast, Nez manages that whole pipeline process, and we do utilize like someone from Fiverr to do the audio, but she does like all the show notes and then everything else along with it. So she just kind of like really runs that and goes with it. Books guests for us, books us on other podcasts, and like, yeah, we've just gone through, created those processes, and then have it written down, what she needs to do, have it detailed out, and then she kind of runs with it. So I literally like show up to a podcast and it's all done. It's great.
I know
AJ,
that.
Sorry, just to add with what you've mentioned, I know that you mentioned that I've handled projects like creating websites and like outsourcing it to Fiverr, like specialists on Fiverr. So that's like another platform where you guys can get virtual assistants like Fiverr or Upwork. But the difference is that, you know, they work their hours compared to like what AJ was mentioning, like working with a dedicated virtual assistant, that they can work, you know, your hours and can be available when you with the set time.
The other thing that I always kind of come back to is you think you want someone part-time, but in actuality, like you can figure out how to utilize them full-time. It just takes a little bit more planning. And, you know, when you're paying the economics of what it is to, you know, pay someone $10 an hour to do something when your time's worth $100 an hour, like it makes sense to get a full-time person, like no doubt.
Are these 1099 employees? What exactly is their tax status?
Yeah, 1099.
Okay. Any other questions? How many people here in the attendees have maybe not a real estate business, but just other tasks that, you know, could be helped by a VA? You know, real estate's not the only thing that VAs do. Obviously, they can help you with just personal tasks, organizing your at-home papers. How many other people here use VAs?
Don't all speak at once.
There's a couple people putting it in the chat that they do.
You know, and
Bookkeeping.
this presentation isn't necessarily meant to be for VAs. It's meant to, like, you know, how do you delegate? How do you be effective at working with someone else and really like offloading your tasks so that you're spending your time on the most beneficial things. And hopefully that's what I was getting at this presentation.
AJ, question from Daniel. How do we find virtual assistants that are as great as Allan and Jerica?
Probably start talking to Allan. She can probably help you.
All right. Any other questions from the group? Feel free to just take yourself off mute.
I have a question, and
Yep.
sorry I came in late, so maybe I missed this part. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Jocelyn. My question is, how do you interview virtual assistants to see that, like, what kind of questions do you ask to make sure that they, you know, match your culture or will be a good fit for your business?
Allan, I'm going to let you take this one. I think
That's a good question. Actually, during the screening and recruiting process, I take a look at their past work experiences. And then from there, I generate my interview questions if they're able to take on the task, like, let's say a customer service person for a property management company. Like if they're able to do that or complete those tasks that are included in the role. And then aside from that, we also have an assessment that we have our virtual assistants take, just for us to make sure that, you know, they're qualified for the position. Plus we also review or like take a look at their communication skills. So like onset of their application, we ask them to send over a video introduction. And then from there, you can already gauge the communication skills of the person, especially if you're going to have the virtual assistant take on customer service phone calls. So communication skills is number one.
And I think, Jocelyn, what you were maybe getting at is like, it is, if you're going to hire someone, is it just one person? And that's what Allan does, is like sifts through and finds, you know, candidates, and then typically you'll have like 3 to 5 interviews with people. So it's very much like a hiring process of you finding the fit of who's going to work in your organization or with you and make sure it's going to be a good fit. So it's not like, oh, I've just got this one person. Like you've got options to choose from. And you know, we've gone through 3 or 6 interviews sometimes, and it's just like not a right fit for moving someone into a personal assistant for me. Like I've gone through a few, which is, you know, why I use that Trello board very much and keep that. So, you know, it is a taxing job. And whenever you're, you know, working with someone else, I document, and written processes is really where my kind of mantra goes in. And I think the assessment Allan was talking about is we have them take a DISC profile, so we kind of understand like what type of personality there are, and you can glean a little bit from that. I have not done a huge amount of research into like what sort of profiles fit certain positions, but you can certainly dig deep into that if you want to.
Thank you both.
I don't know if you want to answer these questions, but quite a few people have asked about the rates that are being paid.
Yeah, I mean, like I think offsite professionals starts at $9 an hour.
Yeah,
And then it goes up from there depending on required skills.
Okay.
Question from Henry, but I think I already answered this via chat. So do your virtual assistants work from their own home, or do you have like an office they go to here locally in the Philippines? Like we don't have an office, but that's definitely a goal in the future. So our VAs work from the comfort of their homes, but we have them install like a time tracking tool or activity software on their computers to ensure that they work during their scheduled hours. So we also send those reports to the clients if they request to, or we can have it forwarded to them automatically as well. So, you know, just to make sure that, you know, the VA is performing and she's doing or he is doing the task that it is assigned to him or her.
And then Jocelyn is asking, what's the timing software called?
It's called Hubstaff.
All right.
Time tracking tool.
Yeah, and it takes like a screenshot every 10 minutes to make sure that they're working on the right stuff and not the wrong stuff. We don't provide access to clients for that. That's more of like, I mean, the last thing you want to be doing is just micromanaging. So we do not like promote looking at that very often. It's only if you're having issues, we have it.
If other people don't have VA related questions, you are a property manager in Portland, and I might pick your brain there a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so we've only got 4 minutes left.
Okay.
What's your top 2 to 3 pieces of advice for people doing property management in the Portland area?
Boy, top pieces of advice. Well, know what the laws are and how to get around them, and what to do. If you ever get into a situation, I suggest cash for keys. Like, it's way better to have someone leave on their own volition as opposed to forcing them out.
Yeah, explain that a little bit more. What is cash for keys?
Well,
I think most people know, but
Portland has a relocation assistance right now, but so our main business is buying multifamily properties, fixing them up, and like when you do that, like people are exiting. So we'll typically raise the rents in a way that allows for us to do so with the rent control. But sometimes, you know, people are so far under rent that we have to go through other measures, and that's really talking with them and being like, all right, what is it going to take to get you out of this? And like most people have kind of come to the understanding of what the price of relocation assistance is. And it's different on all the different metros is kind of what it seems. Portland has its own, the state of Oregon has its own, Milwaukee has its own. So understanding what those are, where your investment is, and then moving forward with either giving them a more lucrative deal or trying to work something out with them. You know, it's really about finding win-win situations. And that's kind of.
okay. Any other last piece? I think I cut you off and you were going to go to something else. Maybe not.
I don't know. I mean, like I'm big into value add. We're very conservative. We buy assets that are already performing to some extent, and then we go in and just trying to make them better. And
all right.
It's very conservative in my opinion, I guess.
Hey, could everybody here take themselves off mute and thank AJ for coming in and talking to us today, and Allan and
Rika.
Oh, Rika, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
Rika.
so much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Allan,
Thank you
and thanks,
all.
AJ.
Thanks,
Rika.
Rika, Allan.
Allan.
Woo! Great topic. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, very
I
interesting.
hope people like it's working in teams and managing people is tough.
All right, everybody, have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, you too.
Next week we
Bye-bye.
have Alicia
Yes.
with supercharging offers.
Where do we find the recording, by the way?
Oh, let me show you really quickly. Here, I'll share my screen. It's we've got a SharePoint, and it does need to be updated. And I'm going to bring this up here and then share my screen. So internally, we have our, put the chat down, we have our Real Estate Investment Club SharePoint site. I'll drop the link in here, but you can find our upcoming meetings, recordings of all the videos that have been presented, and of course, our previous speakers page where AJ will go here soon, along with all the other people that we've had present almost every week since September of 2019. So it's being a little slow here. While that's going on, I'll drop the link in the chat.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a great weekend, everyone.